Welcome to Food Exposed, where each week we take a close look at what's on your plate. My name is Jackie Keller, and I'm the founding director of NutriFit, Los Angeles' leading healthy food company. Today, we're taking a close look at why we put stuff on our plates, literally our eating habits as a country in general. This is serious stuff because, as you know, 2/3 of adult Americans are overweight or obese, as are 1/3 of our children. And what do heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and cancer have in common? Obesity. It's an underlying cause of all of these chronic diseases that are killing more than 100,000 Americans every year. And we're going to get to the heart of this problem with our guest. But before we do, I thought that it would be interesting to take a look at where we've been with dieting trends over the last few years and look back even further to see how little has changed since the 1930s in general. So here's a quick tour through the history of dieting trends. In the 1930s and 40s, you could blame Lucky Strike. Smoking was the way we got thin back then. The cigarette brand used the line, "Reach for a Lucky instead of a sweet." Yuck, literally. Heart disease, lung cancer, that's what we got, not skinny. And that's not the only thing that debuted back then. The lemonade diet was popular, which is remarkably like, well, wait for it, today's master cleanse. And in the 1950s, we were praying for weight loss. The Christian dieting industry was born and followed Reverend Charlie Shedd's book, Pray Your Weight Away. This was followed by I Prayed Myself Slim and Help Lord, the Devil Wants Me to Be Fat. Fast forward to 2002 and Don Colbert publishes What Would Jesus Eat and What Would Jesus Eat cookbook. I mean, seriously. And then in the 1960s, we all shared the love, right? And when it came to dieting, we grew support organizations like Overeaters Anonymous and Weight Watchers. We ate the cabbage soup diet to bloat our stomachs up so we'd feel full and lose weight. Well, not. In the 1970s, the era of miracle pills, from Dexatrim to fat blockers, and where have we heard more about this recently? This gets revived again just a few years later with Fen-Phen and other miracle diet pills. Oh yeah, the cookie diet turns out not so new. It started in the 1970s. By 1980, the Scarsdale diet came in with hardcore, high protein, low carb, low calorie, and you thought starving was new? In the 1990s, Dr. Atkins took Scarsdale one step beyond and introduced high fat to the no-carb picture. So why does this sound familiar? In 2000, we've had an explosion of diets. Since then, you have your choice. There are cleanses, paleo, which is one of the worst diets of 2013 according to the US News and World Reports, the DASH diet, the South Beach diet, the Mediterranean diet, and there's even a new one called the ice cream cleanse. Yep, it just made the scene straight from right here in Venice, California. Yet, as a nation, we keep getting fatter. So what really works, and how can we get a grip on our waistlines? Well, my guest today is an expert in this area. In fact, she's a senior natural scientist and leading researcher at RAND Corporation, an MD with a master's in public health, and the author of a recently published book, A Big Fat Crisis, The Hidden Forces Behind the Obesity Epidemic and How We Can End It. Dr. Cohen, welcome to Food Exposed.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, you know, in your book, A Big Fat Crisis, you talk about changing the conversation around obesity. Tell me more about that. I hear people talk about diet all day long, and clearly as a country, we're awash in food. Everywhere you turn, there's an opportunity to eat, and we all know you can't eat constantly. I own a food business, and a lot of industry is driven around food business. How do we reconcile that segment of the economy with having too much food and temptation?
Okay. The problem we have now with the obesity epidemic is that we generally consider this an individual problem. And if we continue to do that, we will never change this issue. We have to think of this as a public health crisis at this point. I mean, you mentioned the statistics. 2 out of 3 adults are overweight or obese, and we have this huge increase in chronic diseases, type 2 diabetes, and it's making our healthcare costs soar. And so instead, we have to really look at what's underlying this epidemic. And in my view, the problem is that we have allowed our country to be turned into a food swamp.
Oh my.
So, I mean, you've mentioned it. There's food everywhere you go. And
That's
the problem is that when we see food, it makes us feel hungry. And if it's convenient, if it's in front of us, it encourages impulse purchasing, impulse buying, impulse eating. And unfortunately, that's the way human beings are designed. It's in our DNA to eat when food is available. There's so many studies that show that if you serve people more than they need, they will eat more than they should. And so if we really look at the underlying causes, the problem is our restaurants. They serve way too much food, too much salt, too much sugar, too much fat, too many calories. And it's our supermarkets, which encourage us to buy foods that increase our risk of chronic diseases.
Oh, so there are many people who literally can't control their urge to eat and, you know, eat the wrong foods?
Well, look, that's most of us. Remember, 2 out of 3 people are eating more calories than they burn in physical activity. So that's the normal person.
Wow.
And as I said, we've done studies where you serve people too much food, people automatically eat more than they should. The problem is that we have this misperception of human nature. We tend to think that people are in full control of everything they do. We think that if we choose something and put it in our mouths, it was our deliberate decision. But the truth is that most of our behaviors are actually automatic, and they occur without our intention or conscious control. So just think about eating. If you were watching a movie, you had a bowl of popcorn in your lap, you're watching the picture, you can take your hands, put it in the popcorn bowl, put the popcorn in your mouth, chew it and swallow it, all without paying attention, without carefully directing that to happen. We can do it automatically. And we can keep eating, and we won't even know that we are finished until there's nothing left in the bowl, right? So that was an automatic behavior. We can do it unconsciously, without intention, without deliberation, without any effort. But we were designed that way. Eating is an automatic behavior.
My goodness. So you mentioned in the book that, and by the way, what a great title. It's a wonderful book. That we don't fully control our senses. And how does that tie into advertising and personal choice?
Okay. So we don't control our senses much at all. You know, if we hear a sound, you know, we'll automatically turn toward that sound. We don't think, you know, oh, I heard a sound, I better turn my head. It's the other way around. You know, if we see a tempting food, we will automatically start salivating. We don't tell ourselves, okay, body, start salivating, feel hungry. No, that happens. It's an automatic, it's a reflexive response to food. And that's the problem. We have food all around us, and it's causing this reflex which we cannot control. No one can control that. That makes us feel hungry. What we can partly control is whether we act on those feelings of hunger and those desire. And basically, the market has figured out what increases the chances that we will actually act on those desires. And so they've set up restaurants and supermarkets to make us, you know, to really lead us to buy more and eat more than we really should.
So you talk in the book about the food environment being at the root of the problems today. So one example might be the supermarket example. Can you give us some others?
Yeah, so I mean, let's go back to restaurants. I mean, right now, when we go out to eat, we'll be, most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, we will be increasing our risk of a chronic disease just by going to a restaurant.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's because restaurants will serve you more food than you need, right? And if you get too many calories at one meal, it's very hard to compensate later because people have also a very limited ability to track what they eat. You know, they've done all kinds of studies. They ask people, what did you eat in the last 24 hours?
Right, a recall.
And most people underreport by anywhere from a couple hundred calories to like 1,000 calories. Like the average person doesn't remember eating what constitutes like a full meal.
Wow.
So, you know, 400 to 500, 600 calories, we won't even realize. Again, it's because we're not paying attention to what we're eating. You know, we can eat, and I can, you know, talk to you, or I can drive a car or watch TV, and that means we're not tracking what we're eating, what we're, you know, swallowing. We can't really keep track of that.
So I've heard a lot about this sort of eat following your intuition, your body will tell you. So what you're saying is that's not so.
That is absolutely not so. People were designed to be able to eat more than they need. That's why we have a pathway that we can convert the extra calories into fat. If we could only eat what we needed, we wouldn't, you know, be storing fat. So we're actually designed to eat more than we need.
So what would you recommend that we push for? Is this something that should be legislated? And how does that work with personal choice?
Okay. Well, you know, we legislate a lot of things to protect people from risk. So we legislate the quality of the water that's in our, you know, pipes and comes through the faucet, so that people don't automatically get exposed to toxins and things that will make them sick. Well, you know, we can do something like that when it comes to the food environment, because right now we've allowed businesses to put all of us at risk. We're at risk every time we dine out. We're at risk every time we go to the supermarket. So one of the things I proposed in restaurants is to have standardized portion sizes. And so when we buy something, when we order something, we should be able to get that in an appropriate portion size, a standard portion size which is appropriate for one person to eat at a single serving.
Well, that's pretty controversial, because that takes away the whole value proposition from the equation.
Right now, if you go to a restaurant and they serve you more than what's appropriate for you, you're going to get sick. You're going to increase your risk of obesity or chronic disease. And if I wanted to go out to eat and not get sick, I don't have that option. So if every restaurant would just have it available in a single portion, a standardized portion, then it would be up to me. It would be up to every consumer to decide to choose one portion or not. If someone wanted 2 portions, they could. But right now, we have no way to estimate what we're getting. Now, I have to tell you, we already have portion standards when it comes to alcohol. If we order a drink, whether it's a beer or a wine or a shot of liquor, the amount we get only has 0.6 ounces of ethanol.
Okay.
Right? So we can gauge our risk of becoming drunk. You know, if you renew your license at the DMV, you'll get some information that tells you how many drinks you can have, and then it would be safe to drive. Right? And people can gauge that by counting their drinks. Well, we don't have that for food. And that's all I'm proposing. It's not taking away people's right to choose to eat as much as they want, but it's just a system that will allow people to track how much they're getting and to not be put at risk every time they go out to eat.
Fascinating. Wow. Well, you know, speak of personal choice. I thought we'd take a few minutes today in the kitchen to put together some great choices for managing a healthy diet. And I know that portion control is a big issue for many, many people. And I think that food labeling in restaurants and fast food operations is a step in the right direction. But I think it's going to be a while before we get to the point where the government is going to step in further. I know that there have been some attempts to do that.
Yeah, you know, every restaurant already has portion sizes. They're just different for every single restaurant.
That's very
true. And if they would all get on the same page, then people would have the option to choose. That would give people the power to choose how much they're eating. Right now, we don't have that choice. We just get whatever they give us, and if it's too much, tough on us. Tough on us. You know, but people actually don't have the capacity to estimate volume just by looking at it. We have a limit when it comes to, you know, figuring out, you know, how many jelly beans are in the jar, right? That's what they're asking us to do.
Yeah.
But most people can't do that. And in general, we underestimate. The larger something is, the less we think is in it. And so it really puts us at a huge disadvantage. So, you know, I mentioned about what restaurants could do, but one of the things we need to do with supermarkets is to do something about all the impulse marketing that they have. Candy at the cash register, chips and sodas on the end of aisles. It turns out that where they place the food in the supermarket determines what we buy.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
You know, I mean, who would think that the placement of something would make us buy something or not, but it does. And so when they put that stuff that we need to avoid in front of our faces, it triggers our impulse buying, and again, it's a risk factor for making us sick.
Well, I think understanding that association is something that we need to talk more about.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm so glad that you put it in this book.
And you know, one of the things that we do, at least for alcohol, is that we don't allow alcohol to be sold at the cash register. We don't allow it, you know, in vending machines. You know, there are some regulations that even don't allow alcohol within 5 feet of the cash register in California. It's against the law, or 5 feet of the front door when you go to a gas station.
Right.
So we could certainly have a regulation on where things would be placed. So it wouldn't prevent people from getting whatever they want, but what it would do, it would assure that when we got something, it was deliberate. If we have to go and look for something at the third aisle on the bottom shelf, then you know we really wanted it.
Right.
But if we're just grabbing it because it's there and it's an automatic sort of unconscious thing, you know, that's something that we could protect people from without limiting their free choice.
Well, very interesting. We'll have to see how that evolves.
Yes.
For now, let's go to the kitchen and talk about choosing fruits and vegetables.
All right.
All right.
Let's go.
So today I thought we would spend a few minutes talking about the value proposition for foods that are healthy, because I think there's a perception that healthy foods are expensive and that, you know, people don't buy things that are healthy because they cost too much, and availability is an issue if it's healthy food. But, you know, as you and I both know, in the world of plants, economy is sort of the byproduct of it being plant-based, and also availability. I mean, we're fortunate, we live here in California and we have fruits and vegetables in abundance, but I wanted to share a recipe for a vegetable curry, which I thought would be quick and easy and fun to make. And I've cut up a bunch of vegetables here that we can put into the pan sort of all at once. It's one of those one-pot wonders, you know. You don't have to mess with it. The longest part of preparing a dish like this, of course, is cutting everything and chopping. But once you have that down, or you buy frozen even, which is another option, it's really a quick fix as far as a healthy meal is concerned. But let's talk for a minute, if we could, about portion sizes and value. So I brought along an onion, and as we talked before the show, you mentioned, oh, that looks like a really big onion. That must be, you know, at least a pound of onion. And in fact, weighing it, we realized, yes, it is a pound of onion.
Yeah, that's an extra large onion.
That's an extra large onion. And of course, I have some chopped here and ready to go. But
so you would probably be able to get 3 of those from this one onion.
Exactly. And that one onion might cost 69 cents, 79 cents. In a cheap market or less expensive market might cost, you know, half that. Yeah,
30, 40 cents, yep.
And so that's 3 or 4 servings of onion, depending on your recipe. And I also pre-prepared a little bit of broccoli, and I brought a broccoli stalk, and this one is just about 6 ounces, so about 1/3 of a pound of broccoli. And clearly you would get at least this much out of it, if not more. This is a 12-ounce cup.
I think a pound of broccoli is something like 10 servings.
So, you know, we see quickly how inexpensive it is to put all these together. So let's just start by seasoning our pan with a little bit of the onion that I brought. And I'm going to add in a little bit of curry powder because, you know, I think a vegetable curry is a really easy dish to prepare.
So how do you know how much to shake out? Do you ever, measure it?
I've been doing this for a long time.
Okay.
So I no longer measure, but
yeah. So you're just covering up the onion.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And by toasting the curry, it brings out the flavor in the curry powder. It takes a little bit of because curry can be pretty sharp. Doesn't it
smells so
wonderful?
good.
Let's talk for a minute while the vegetables are sauteing about smell and purchase decisions, because that's probably something you've researched a bit too.
Not really.
No?
But
Because I know you talked about the physical appearance of food at the register affecting a purchase decision.
Yeah.
Do you think that the smell as well makes a difference?
Well, I mean, I think most vegetables don't have much of a smell. I think some of the leafy green vegetables might smell, like arugula has a fabulous smell. But I haven't noticed a smell for broccoli or celery, just when it's cold. Maybe after it cooks, it has a smell.
Right. Well, I ask because I know, like, when you're selling a house, they say bake cookies or, do something that has cinnamon, make the house smell good, because it affects people psychologically.
Yeah, I think fruits have a wonderful smell.
So let's talk for a minute about it. I brought a cantaloupe.
A cantaloupe.
Now,
that probably has a great smell.
And of course, a cantaloupe like that weighs about a pound. But usually you buy them, this one turned itself off, but usually you buy them by the piece. So quite often a cantaloupe like that will be maybe $2, something like that in the market, $2, 2 for $4, something like that. And, typically, again, servings, I mean, I would guess that you would get easily 8 average servings out of
probably a small one, about 8 servings.
So again, about 25 cents a serving.
Right.
So I've put in here our onions, some carrots, some bell peppers, some celery. We can add in some broccoli, and we've got even a little bit of cauliflower here. And you see what's happening here visually is we're creating something that has this wonderful palette of color.
Yeah, beautiful.
And really, we eat first with our nose, so we want to make it smell right. And then, if it passes the nose test, it goes to the eyes, because, after you're, over the age of 3, you no longer put things in your mouth that smell bad or look awful, something like that. And then, if it passes the eyes and the nose, then we're willing to taste it. So
purple is beautiful.
Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
And just a little bit of purple cabbage. And again, talk about affordable. This is maybe 10 cents a serving.
Right.
The other vegetables ranging in price, some zucchini here from 15 or 20 cents a serving.
Yeah.
So we put in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different kinds of vegetables. All right. And let's say on the average, they're and a little bit more seasoning, because our volume here has grown. Let's say 25 cents an average serving size. So we've created a dish here that will easily serve 4 or 5 people, maybe with a little brown rice at the bottom, maybe some potatoes could be added to it to complement the vegetables. But we're talking about something that has a price point per serving.
It's affordable, definitely affordable. The USDA has done research on what vegetables do cost. And I don't think anywhere in the country vegetables are more than about, at the most 50 cents a serving. And the USDA, the guidelines, the dietary guidelines for Americans say that the average person needs 4.5 cups of fruits and vegetables every single day.
Wow.
4.5 cups. So that means if you divide it across 3 meals, that's 1.5 cups a meal.
Right, right.
Fruits and vegetables. And people forget that they need that every day. And if they don't get it every meal, then they're going to have to somehow compensate.
Right.
And try to, if you didn't get it at breakfast, at lunch, try eating all 4.5 cups at dinner.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen, right?
Right.
And that's why it's really important to spread it out, because it's pretty hard to eat it all at once. It's just, the volume is so great. And what's so nice about it, it does fill you up.
Right. All that fiber really makes you feel full. And I I'm wondering, now that we've got this wonderful, colorful, beautiful dish, is your salivary glands, are we feeling it a little bit?
Yeah, feeling it, especially that smell is so lovely.
All right, well, how about if I ask you to taste? Will you take a bite?
Okay.
All right, let's dish it up just a little bit, because I know it's hot, and but again, just realizing that the color is so lovely and so welcoming that,
all right.
Here you go.
All right.
Now,
Alrighty.
obviously, a little bit more time, and
I'm going for that carrot. Yummy. That was really good.
Thank you.
I'm going for these carrots.
Much. Yeah, that bright orange color really attracts us, right? It's the color of health. So, Dr. Cohen, Deborah, I know that people will want to follow your work, and of course, your book is available on Amazon.
Yes,
and that's where I found it.
A Kindle book too.
A Kindle book too. So it's an easy read, a great read. But how else can people find you?
Well, I'm at the Rand Corporation, and you can look at the Rand website and see the work that I'm doing. But I do hope you'll read the book, and in the book there's a chapter on what people can do about this obesity epidemic. I think the first thing is really that we have to stop blaming ourselves. You know, nobody wants to be fat. I don't think anyone is deliberately trying to eat too much, you know, and exercise too little. It's really the environment that's creating this situation that's undermining our long-term goals. And so we've got to do what we've done with other issues in public health, is, you know, have some standards, have some way to control the environment so that it doesn't put us at risk every time we step out the door. You know, we have standards for cars, so, you know, we don't crash, that cars don't explode and, you know, go on fire. And we have, you know, regulations that check that out. We have standards for water, we have standards for air, we have standards for housing. You know, just imagine if we didn't have railings on the stairs, we'd be falling, and would we blame ourselves? No, we realize that by not having a system that keeps us safe, we're at risk. And that's what's happened with the food environment. We have nothing that protects us from being overwhelmed with too much food, from making us feel hungry when we don't need to eat. That's the problem. Just let's target where the source is, and then we can all be healthy effortlessly.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
But that's what it would be.
Yeah.
If people didn't serve us too much and make us buy food that would make us sick, we would be healthy.
Well,
that's the way to look at it.
And we'll definitely keep in touch and see how we're doing as a society. So I hope you'll come back and visit us again.
Well, thanks for having me.
And thank you again for coming.
All right, my pleasure.
My coaching moment today is about the experience of choice. In his book, Why We Do What We Do, Edward Deci says, at the heart of human freedom is the experience of choice. And as a coach, I talk to people in terms of making their own choices and forging their own path all the time. The entire premise of coaching, in fact, is built on the assumption that if you can help people unlock their own intrinsic motivation, they will be empowered to do most anything. So it's surprising then that we don't expect our experts to open the doors of decision making for us. We expect to be told what to do. But research shows that while being told or controlled is the easy answer, it assumes that the promise of reward or the threat of punishment will make the offenders comply. And anyone who's ever raised a child or tried to compel somebody to do something knows just how true that is. However, when we're controlled or compelled to do something, we act the part, but we don't necessarily live it. So consider this. Compliance and defiance exist in an unstable partnership. We're often told to do it someone else's way to survive or succeed, yet fulfillment lies in living the most unique expression of ourselves. A very wise boss of mine once told it to me like this, and I will always remember Neil Salinger for telling me we all operate out of our own mutual self-interest. The trick is to find people whose self-interest is mutually aligned with yours. John Steinbeck, in his book East of Eden, says, but the Hebrew word, the word timshel, thou mayest, that gives a choice. It might be the most important word in the world. that says the way is open, and that throws it right back on a man. For if thou mayest, it is also true, thou mayest not. That's my show for today. Join me next week on Food Exposed as we take a look at what's on your plate. For more Food Exposed, check me out on emPOWERme.tv. And until next week, remember, make food your best friend and exercise your companion for life.